Stop listening to Donald Trump. I know that sounds crazy, but hear me out. Every time the media puts Trump's tweets, his Fox News calls, or his random comments in the headlines, they are missing the real story. And today I'm going to tell you what that real story actually is. So Trump just told Fox News that there is no time frame on ending the Iran war. He said, "I want a good deal for the American people. Not a quick deal, but a good one." But here's the problem. In two different interviews on the same day, he said, "We don't have much time" in one interview, and "we have all the time in the world" in the other. So what is really going on in the head? It doesn't matter what he says, because this war was supposed to last 4 to 6 weeks. That was the plan. 4 to 6 weeks. Yes, only 4 weeks. Okay, so what has the US and Israel actually done in 8 weeks of this war? They killed Iran's top leader. They hit dozens of military commanders. They struck a lot of Iran's military sites and infrastructure. That is real damage. Nobody is saying it isn't. But here's what's also real. About half of Iran's missiles and missile launchers are still working. Around 60% of Iran's Navy, the Revolutionary Guard's Navy, is still intact. 2/3 of Iran's Air Force is still flying. And Iran still has a large number of drones. Real freaking drones, not fake. Remember when the defense secretary stood up and said Iran's military was basically finished? That turned out to not be the full picture. Here is the part that really matters, and I don't think enough people are talking about this. Iran now has control over the Strait of Hormuz. That is the narrow waterway that almost all oil and gas ships pass through. If that strait is blocked or threatened, the global economy takes a hit. Every country that uses oil, which is every country unfortunately, feels it. The US set up a naval blockade to stop Iranian ships. But here's the problem. That blockade doesn't help the hundreds of non-American, non-Israeli ships that are already stuck there. And the Pentagon has told Congress it could take 6 months just to clear the mines Iran placed in the water. And then this week, Iran seized 2 ships, one Panamanian and one Liberian, and fired on a third. When the White House was asked about it, their spokesperson said Trump would not take action because those ships weren't American or Israeli. Think about that. Most ships in the strait are not American or Israeli. So basically the message is, Iran can take those ships and we won't stop them. This is so freaking. So what can Trump actually do from here? Realistically, there were 2 options. Option 1, keep bombing Iran. But bombing alone is not making the Iranian government surrender. That much is clear after 8 weeks. Option 2, send in ground troops. But that is not happening. Trump has not said it, and the US military doesn't want it. Option 3, and this is new, is what they're calling Operation Economic Fury. The idea is to break Iran's economy through the blockade and sanctions until the government collapses. And here's the issue with that. Iran has been living under US sanctions for 47 years. Yes, 47 years. And in 2018, Trump himself made those sanctions even harder. Iran's economy suffered. People protested, but the government did not fall. And here's the real twist. Just a few weeks ago, this same administration told Iran, "We're so furious at you that we're going to let you sell 140 million barrels of oil worth about $14 billion. They lifted part of the sanctions while they were at war with them. And now they want to use economics as the weapon? There was supposed to be a second round of peace talks in Pakistan. The US delegation was ready. J.D. Vance was going to lead it. They were going to fly out Monday, then Tuesday, and then Wednesday. Iran stood them up for 72 hours and then just said no. The US extended the ceasefire. Iran said the ceasefire is already broken because of the naval blockade. The ceasefire ended today. So how do we get back to talks? The US probably needs to signal it's willing to lift the blockade if Iran comes back to the table. Iran needs to stop seizing civilian ships. Neither side will say this publicly, but that's what has to happen. And for what it's worth, in the first round of talks, both sides actually moved a little. The US stopped demanding Iran end all of its nuclear program. They said okay to a 20-year pause. Iran said 5 years. You can see where a deal could land. Today's big headline is that Navy Secretary John Phelan has been pushed out. He was fired because he went directly to Trump instead of going through Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. There was a personality clash. He had no military experience. He was reportedly out of his depth. But here's the bigger story. He is the 34th military officer that Hegseth has fired since taking over. 3 cabinet members gone, 13 senior generals and admirals removed. And in the middle of an active war, one of the most significant firings was the U.S. Army Chief of Staff, General Randy George. Why was he fired? He stood up for 4 officers who were being blocked from promotion. 2 because they were black, 2 because they were women. Hegseth called it DEI. George pushed back and gone. Let's end on this. A new Reuters poll found that 51% of Americans think Trump's mental sharpness has gotten worse. That includes a majority of independents, most Democrats, and some Republicans. Only 26% described him as even-keeled. His approval rating in this poll is 36%. That is one of the lowest numbers of his presidency. Of 6 major polls taken recently, 5 had him in the 30s. 1 was as low as 33%. On the economy, only 26% of Americans said they were confident in how Trump is handling it. Nearly 70% disapprove of how he is handling inflation. People can put up with a lot, but when the economy is hurting, they stop laughing at the chaos and start asking who is actually in charge. That is where we are right now. Don't watch Trump's tweets, watch what happens next in the Strait of Hormuz. That is where this war gets decided. I'll see you in the next one.